Chapters 1 and 2, we saw that they were kind of falling in love and maturing together. And remember, she kind of wanted to hurry things along, and he said, "Whoa, slow down there, cowgirl. And let's just let this thing happen and get to know each other for each other." And that was chapters 1 and 2. Chapters 3 and 4, of course, they get to the point where they do fall in love. They do decide to get married. And, of course, they have intimacy for the first time, but it's a purity there. There's a beauty there in that they did wait and they got to know each other and learn to appreciate one another before they got naked before each other. Chapters 5 and 6 is basically, if you're going to sum it up, it would be summed up in that this is when the relationship gets tested, as it always will. I mean, regardless of who you are and your situation, there will come times where a relationship between a man and a woman is tested. And do you know for a fact that most of the enmity, if you want to call it that, between a man and a woman, that's the guy. Between a man and a woman doesn't come from without, although it can. There's always the mother-in-law. There's always the sister, that's saying, "Why don't you dump that bum? Why don't you get rid of him?" and all that. I mean, there's always that person. But most of the enmity between a man and a woman usually come from the man and the woman. And the reason is very simple. The fact is that man and woman is much more than just a man or a woman. What are they? Well, if you think about it just for a moment, they are a multifaceted individual. If you say, "Well, what's Tom Channer like?" Lord have mercy. I couldn't tell you what Tom Channer's like, and I have to live with the guy. You see, well, what do you mean by that? Well, all right, Tom Channer's a male, first of all. Oh, no, he's not. He's an entity. He's an 0110101. Tom Channer is a male. He is about 5'6". He's a physical guy. Or used to be. He is now elderly. He's 63. He's not 23 anymore like he thinks he is in his brain. Well, he's got brown hair. He's got blue eyes. He's about 5'9". I mean, you could say this about Tom Channer, but are you really describing Tom Channer? No, you're just describing my physical attributes. Well, okay, Tom Channer is a husband. Well, what's he like? Well, he was married to a woman named Carol. He tries to take care of her best he can. He works around the house. He does all, he helps provide a living. He works full time, blah, 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 blah. It goes. Well, is that all he is? No, Tom Channer is also a pastor. Well, let's put in all the attributes of the pastor, all the attributes of the husband, all the attributes of a man. Tom Channer is a father. Let's put in all the attributes of a father. He's a good dad. He's a bad dad. He's He spends time with the kids. He takes place. What does he do? All the attributes as a father. Well, what else is Tom Channer? You see what I'm saying? You could go on. A grandfather. And there's only one attribute there because I haven't done too much yet. I went over and saw the little potato, but other than that. But the point is, there's a lot of layers, a lot of levels to this creature known as Tom Channer, other than just, oh yeah, he's a nice guy. Well, knowledgeable. He's a student. He's a teacher. I've been a teacher for years. Not just here, but in the professional institutional setting. He's a teacher. He looks after kids. He trains, and works with them. You could go on and on. Well, same thing with the wife. What is, put some things down here. What is cucaracha? Well, first of all, she's a womano. A cucaracha. 11-0-0-0-11. And, she's pretty, and she's about, I don't know, 5'9", 5'8"?
No, 5'4".
5'4". 5'4", and she's dark-haired, and she's got a weird language that nobody understands. I mean, you can go on and on. Then you say, well, she's also what? Well, she's a mother, and a wife, and a teacher. Anyway, you can put, and with each of these levels comes a number of characteristics, or what I like to say, expectations. So when all of this woman decides to marry all of this man, you know what happens? All of this stuff comes with her, like it or don't. So they start living together, and eventually the man's going to say, or the woman's going to say, I'm not so sure I like this about you. That's not the kind of husband I want. So you get a little fire burning over here sometimes. Stop leaving your undies on the floor, will you, Tim? Come on, for crying out loud. And then over here, well, you're getting fat, and you're supposed to keep your health up. That's an issue, Carol, I have right now. Not me, her. About me. Well, you don't, I have to do all the kids and all this and all that. You never take the kids. You never help out with the kids. You never change diapers. And, oh, God, you're doing this and on it goes, you see. And every time, that's why a woman, the same thing with the man. You're not this, and you're scream too much, and you're mean, and on it goes. And all of these little expectations of the perfect woman are on fire. She gets her feelings hurt, he gets his feelings hurt, and then a lot of the tension, a lot of the stress, a lot of the fighting, a lot of the testing of the relationship comes from within. When God said, the man and woman shall cleave each thereunto one another and become one in my sight, we all like that, right? But after that, the first and foremost immediate admonition is that which God hath joined together, let no one rend asunder. Is that not the verse? That let no one is first person. In other words, he's not talking about some outside source. Let no one put asunder. He's saying, let not either one of you screw this up, is what he's saying. Most people don't know that. When God says, let no one tear this up, that one he's talking about is those who just became one in his sight. He's not talking about the sister or the mother-in-law or anybody on the outside. And that's one of the biggest misunderstandings in the Bible today. The language here is quite simple. First person singular. Don't mess it up. You two are the biggest enemy to your marriage. Or at least you could be. However, there are outside things. Let's face it. This guy gets drafted and all of a sudden, he's off to war. And he's sent 13,000 miles away to fight in some crazy country. And he's gone for 2 years. What happens? Well, suddenly a very vital part of this one is gone. Separation. Now we say it makes the heart grow fonder. What if the heart wasn't fond in the first place? Then it's going to make the heart grow cold, right? It's going to make it grow absent. And when you're gone, she's out looking for, somebody else wandering down the street. Whew. This is part of the reason why those first 2 chapters were so important. To come to appreciate one another and to overcome some of these issues long before you jump in bed with each other and start all that. This is where you learn to appreciate and value one another, and you see each other as more important than yourself. In fact, the ancient wedding thing is, Lord, when the priest is blessing them in the end, may they learn to cherish one another more than they cherish themselves. Because if you can do that, and you want this, regardless of these issues, then when this is gone or separated, the heart can grow fonder. The heart can remember the great years we had together before the marriage, before all that, when he was just a guy that I loved and I learned to love and I can't live without. Then the heart will grow fonder. But otherwise, if the heart ain't fond, by the time the old marriage comes along and God joins you as one together, then chances are it's not going to grow fonder when the testing comes in. Be that testing in terms of going away somewhere for 2 years, or be that testing right here. I hear it all the time. Husbands, wives come in for marital counseling. Usually the wife, because the husbands are mostly cowards. And the wife comes in and says to me, and she'll be fussing and upset and aggravated. And I'm very cool about this stuff. And I'll say, well, why don't you just tell me in your own terms, what's the problem? What do you think the problem is? What is it about him that aggravates you? And their answer invariably every time is, everything. You hate everything about him? How is that even possible? I'll bet you don't even know everything about him. There's lots more stuff you could hate him for that he hasn't even told you yet. But no, I don't have any coffee. But invariably, that's the answer. You know what that tells me immediately right off the bat? She doesn't know who his man is. She might have all these expectations for him. But the question is, does he know that? Has she related that to him in a positive and caring, loving sense? And the same thing in reverse. Does he know her? Have they taken the time to invest themselves in one another to where they know what she wants, what she likes, what drives her crazy, what makes her happy, these things are important. Why? Because you're going to live together forever. And if you think it doesn't bother you now, it will bother you then, especially when it continues forever, 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 forever. You could get off of a capital crime in 25 years, but the Lord says forever. Now, keep walking over there, get that cup of coffee. So you see where testing can be so vital in a relationship or so destructive in a relationship. There isn't a woman that's honest. There's not an honest woman in the world who won't sit down and say, oh, we've had our troubles. Or, oh, my husband has been such an idiot in the past. Or any one man that hasn't sat down and said, oh, she was gorgeous when I married her, but now, holy moly, I didn't know I was marrying Broadzilla. Turn her loose on Japan. Let her destroy the whole place again. Now, but the fond heart will say that in a laughing or dismissive manner, by in the sense that, yeah, she's been a pain in the rear end, but I wouldn't trade her for the world. That's a fond heart. Yeah, he's been the biggest idiot that God put on this planet, but he's my idiot. You see what I'm saying? That's a fond heart. And that tells me that this has been communicated, these expectations for one another. They have taken the time, and it doesn't end at the marriage bed. It continues throughout your life, because what a man's like as a new husband may not be what he's like as an old husband. What a man's like as a new father may not be what he's like as an older father. Things change all the time, just like our bodies are changing. I used to be handsome and mighty and strong. Now I'm just handsome and weak and kind of puny. But things are changing all the time. It's the dynamic. Remember back in the 70s, I don't know, some of you remember this. Did you bring oh, you are such a sweet man of God. You just got a bigger condo in heaven, Chuck. Next to Clotilde Ashley's. She's going to need your garage for her hats. Oh, that's good. But this is the point. It's very vital that we know this. And a lot of these little headaches and heartaches and fires can be put out quickly or, kept to a minimum if we truly understand one another. And you know why we don't understand one another? Because we don't talk to each other. Or worse, we do talk to each other, but we don't listen to each other. There is not another honest woman on this planet that won't say that very thing. Talk to him all the time. He doesn't hear a thing I say. That's because we don't want to know what you're telling us. Anyway. So it's vital, and this is what's key in the Song of Solomon, is trying to slow the woman down in the first place so that this can happen, this time can happen. Well, another time to slow down is during the time of testing. You know, the old things of think about what you're about to say, because you might say something you'll regret. You might say something. Uncle Harley used to say there's nothing worse than having to wait through a tough situation other than wishing you had. You know, well, I'm leaving you. I'll get a woman anywhere. Oh, I'm leaving you. I got guys lined up. Really? And you're Christian men and women? What happened to this no one tear asunder? You're doing exactly what God told you don't do. You know why? Because it'll aggravate their stew. I could say that a lot rougher. Why is Christian divorce high, if not higher than the pagans or the unbelieving divorcees? Why doesn't God get in there and fix those marriages? He told them how to do it. He told them not to do what they're doing. So before any divorce counseling, before any marital counseling can start, first thing we've got to do is get you back to the altar in front of God to do some confessing for the rules you broke. You promised before God. You promised, for better, for worse, richer, for all that nonsense. You promised that you would become one in His sight. And He responded by saying, great, and I will bless all the works of your hands and all the days of your life. But beware, let no one tear this up. When He said no one, He's not talking about somebody out there. He's talking about you and you and you. And if you do tear it up, well then, now you're asking the question, why won't God fix my husband? Well, because he's going to maybe, but He's got to fix his idiot wife first. You see where I'm going with this? You both tore it up. And at this point, it really doesn't matter who tore it up more. The fact is, you both punched a hole in the boat and your ship is sinking. In the scriptures here, chapters 5 and 6, that's what's happening. They are separated, as would be the custom. The king would go back to his castle and his guard, and the queen would be sent to her home, wherever that was. And there is an absence, and they have to now evaluate all of this. She's home alone thinking, did I make the right decision? Did I marry the right man? Is this guy a monkey? Am I going to have to put up with this loneliness and all this stuff all by myself forever? And he's back thinking, do I really want this woman? Is she good enough for me? Am I good enough for her? All this other stuff. You know, the myriad of questions that run through your mind in the absence of the so-called love of your life. Why doesn't he want to see me? Why doesn't he want to come with me? Why won't he invite me? And he's thinking, why? What has she got better to do than me? You know? And guys are a little stupider than girls, but nevertheless, it's basically you're asking the same questions. Can I trust her? Do I trust her? Do I love her? She's saying the same thing. Back and forth. And sometimes they're analyzing it in these terms, but they're saying the same thing. And the professional counselor will see that, look through the static, the tension and the headaches and say, I can tell you exactly what's wrong. You know what's wrong with this marriage, Bob? You. And that broad sitting next to you. That's what's wrong with this marriage, is you two who are in it. But get rid of you two, we won't have a problem now, will we? Tom, that's kind of rude or cruel. I said, well, it's kind of true. It's kind of true. And if you don't believe me, sit down for about a month and let's talk about it. Because I can chart it out for you right now, believe it or don't. And it's funny too, I always ask them a question. Well, I shouldn't give my secrets away, should I? I always ask them a question. I give them each piece of paper and I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest, strongest, most, and 1 being could care less, how much do you really want this relationship to succeed in the future? I asked them actually 2 questions. That's the first question I asked them. Secondly, I asked them basically the same question. If there were no children involved, because most people have kids by that time, if there were no children involved, they didn't exist, how much do you want this relationship to succeed on a scale of 1 to 10? Think about that for a minute. What would you all answer? Well, 99% of the time, the woman says a 9 or 10. The guy says, to be noble, 2 to 4. Why? Well, because the man's usually lazier, and the man's usually, well, it's not my fault. She's the pain. And the woman says, he's a pain, but I'm willing to make it go anyway. Whereas the guy says, she's the pain, and, I've got a group of guys that I meet with who have terrible marriages, and it's called a bar. And they go down to the local community counseling group and get hammered every night. You see what's happening there? She's willing to try regardless of the fact that it's his fault. He's not willing to try because it's all her fault. The fact of the matter is, like I said, Bob, you know what the problem with your relationship is? You're in it. That's the number 1 problem. You know what the problem with your relationship is? You're in it.
I ask myself all the time.
Just once I would like them to say, 10 and 10. 10 and 10 and say, we're both willing to try because I know I'm the idiot, because I know I can be a pain. That's what I'd like to hear just once. 40 years of ministry, it's never happened. Not yet. So if any of you screw up and come to see me, write 10 on the dang question sheet, will you? Even if you lie, write 10. I want to see it once before I die. Okay, if you look at the scriptures now, I know our time is going and I've been yammering. What time is it? Oh, we got a half an hour yet. Where's my glasses? Oh. If you see what it is, let's go to chapter 5 here. Remember, they had a wonderful wedding night and a wonderful wedding union and all that stuff. Everything's starting to balance out a little, and just about the time they seem to be getting things going on, what happens to them? Well, they're separated. He goes back to the castle. She's left alone after this wonderful, wonderful marriage, and he can't understand it. Remember, chapter 5, we ended, that's part of the wedding thing. Chapter 5, verse 1. I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh along with my balsam. I have eaten of the honeycomb, and of my honey I have drank my wine and my milk. And of course the chorus chimes in, eat my friends, eat dear friends, drink and imbibe deeply, oh great, oh sweet lovers. Well, that was the friends, saying hearty hooray to the wedding night and all that, saying that's great. Now the trouble starts. This is the bride, of course, speaking out. I was asleep, but my heart remained awake. A voice, my beloved, was knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is drenched with dew, and my locks with the damp of night. For I have taken off my dress, how can I put it on again? I have washed my feet, how can I dirty them again? For my beloved stretched his hand through the opening, and my feelings were deeply aroused for him. I arose and opened to my beloved. My hands dripped with myrrh, and my fingers with liquid myrrh on the handles of the boat. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had turned now and is gone. My heart went out to him. I searched for him, but I did not find him. I called to him, but he did not answer me. The watchmen who make the rounds of the cities, they found me and struck me and wounded me. The guardsmen at the walls took away my shawl from me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, as to what you tell him, for I am lovesick. Excuse me. She had a wonderful night. Fabulous wedding night, right? Fabulous, excuse me, honeymoon night. And now he's gone. And what does it sound like? Is she upset about it? Well, is she upset, or is she's longing for him? Yeah, she's longing for him. Even to the point she goes out looking for him. She obviously runs to the castle, runs to the palace, tries to get in. The guards say, "Sweetheart, you can't just walk in here. This is the king's." And they beat her up, take her shawl away from her and throw her out and say, "Go home, you idiot. You can't just roll in here." And she says, excuse me, what will you tell him, O daughters of Jerusalem? She's appealing to the friends now, the chorus. If you see my beloved, what will you tell him? Tell him I am lovesick. I am forlorn. I want him back. He's everything in my life and my world. And they answer, what kind of beloved is your beloved, O most beautiful amongst women? What kind of beloved is your beloved? Thus you adjure us. In other words, he says, well, what's your man husband like? What's your boy like? What do you think about him? They're helping her answer these questions. What do you think this guy is like? You want us to tell him how you feel, but we're asking you, how do you feel? You see? So what would you say about your wife? Oh, she's about 5'8". She's 108 pounds. She's got red hair. She's, is that what you would tell somebody? Listen to her response. My beloved, this is written really, Carol says this to me every day. My beloved is dazzling and ruddy. Ruddy. Not sure what that means. Outstanding amongst 10,000. His head is like gold, pure gold. You preach it, sister. His locks are like clusters of fine dates, and black as a raven. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk. How about that? That's some eyes, huh? And reposed in their setting. His cheeks are like beads of haslam, banks of the sweet-scented herbs. His lips are lilies dripping with liquid myrrh. Oh, nice. His hands are rods of gold set with beryl. His abdomen is carved ivory. Yeah, you know that. Inlaid with sapphire. Mm-hmm. His legs are pillars of alabaster. Sounds like she's describing that statue of David, you know? No, that wouldn't be created for another 3,000 years, but his legs are like pillars of alabaster set on pedestals of pure gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, cedars of Lebanon, big, huge, giant, strong and powerful. Choice as the cedars. His mouth is full of sweetness. He is wholly desirable, or completely desirable. This is my beloved. This is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. They answer, the friends answer again, saying, where has your beloved gone, O most beautiful of women? Where has your beloved turned, that we may seek him for you? And she answers, my beloved has gone down to his garden, to the beds of balsam, to pasture the flocks in the garden and gather his lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He pastures his flock amongst my lilies. How well, where has he turned? Well, he's turned into me 100%. She's given herself wholly to him. She is completely devoted to him. She's answering these questions. Do I really want this relationship? I think the answer here to her is what? Yes. Yeah. She even takes a beating for the guy from the guards. And still, with that kind of pressure, that kind of separation, that kind of persecution, she still says, even from outside influences, there's nothing more important in my heart, in my soul, than this, my beloved. Pretty powerful stuff. This is a woman who, when he first met her, said, don't look at me, I'm swarthy and ugly, and you won't like me. I'm burnt brown, I didn't take care of my own vineyard, blah, blah, blah. And he was saying, oh no, my dear, you are quite lovely. You may not see it in yourself, but I see it in you. If you don't believe me, go down and walk past the construction workers and see what they have to say. So obviously his support of her, unconditional support, continued support, most importantly, controlled support, controlled in the sense that, well, he's a wonderful guy, let's jump into bed. He's saying, no, let's love each other for who we are, not what we can do in the bedroom. And because of that, she now has come to appreciate herself, more importantly, to appreciate him. And she's beginning to cherish him more than she cherishes herself. Boom, there's the key of becoming one in God's sight. When Chuck, you appreciate Evelyn more than yourself. And you appreciate and love him, cherish is the word, cherish him more than you cherish yourself or your own life. That's where you start becoming one in God's sight. That's when he'll bless it. That's when he'll establish your home, as the Lord says, forever in peace. And it will be well with you, even in the trying times. This woman's not saying, oh, wow, one night stand, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, the guy's gone back to the castle. I don't know why I ever got involved with this bonehead. That's not what she's saying, is it? No. Why is she saying what she's saying? Well, I think it's because of that first couple of seasons where they learn to love one another for one another. Genuinely caring, learning. We're always learning. I'm learning stuff about my wife now that I never knew back when we were 20 and stupid. Now we're 60 and stupid. But we're learning a little bit more of each other. She's learning that once you pass 60, things start to hurt. I have been telling her that for years. She goes, man, how do you live like this? You're just now starting, man. I've been doing it since I was 45. Anyway, chapter 6, the end of chapter 6, we see the groom respond. We're kind of changing venue from the woman. Okay, we heard her side of it. The friends run around and they say, well, what do you think about her? This is what she thinks about you. What do you think about her? The friends here are the mediators, but closing the distance. The chorus, your Bible probably says chorus. Those represent the friends. Those who supported her in the first place. This guy's gorgeous. We'll make you gorgeous. We'll support you any way we can. A true friend will do that. Now they've asked her, what do you think of him? And she tells them, and they say, okay. And they go to the beloved, the guy, and says, well, what do you think about her? And this is his response. He says, you are the most beautiful as Tirzah, my darling. That was a beautiful garden back in those days. This is him talking about her. She is beautiful as the Tirzah, my darling. As lovely as Jerusalem. I got so many marks on here I can't read it. As lovely as Jerusalem. As an awesome army with banners Turn your eyes away from me, for they have confused me. Her eyes just mesmerize him, in other words. He's the king. And he can't look into her eyes because she just mesmerizes him. For they confuse me. Your hand is like a flock of goats. Your hair is like a flock of goats that have descended from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes coming up from their washing, all of which bear twins, and not one of them has lost their young. Temple is like a slice of pomegranate behind your veil. There are 60 queens and 80 concubines and maidens without number, but my dove is the perfect one. She is unique. She is the mother's only daughter. She is the pure child of the one who bore her. The maidens saw her, and they all called her blessed. The queen and the concubines also, they praised her, saying, "Who is this that grows like the dawn, as beautiful as the full moon, as pure as the beaming sun? As an awesome army is with banners, I went down to the orchards of the nut trees to see the blossoms of the valley, to see whether the vine had budded or the pomegranates had bloomed. And before I was aware, my soul set me over the chariots of my noble people." In other words, she rocked his blooming kingly world. Even to the point where he's mesmerized, he's confused as a king before a great army. Doesn't know what to do. Well, that would be disastrous. And yet when she's in her presence, he can't think of anything but her. Of all the maidens, of all the kings, of all the queens, of all the concubines, of all the daughters of Jerusalem, she is that which is perfect. Well, how does he feel about her? Same way. He cherishes her more than anything else, even the mighty armies with banners. He cherishes her. So the friends then they chime in, and they say, come back, O Shulamite. Come back, that we may gaze upon you. Then he answers, why should you gaze upon the Shulamite as at the dance of two companies? Here's an interesting verse. Not many people know what that means. They're saying, if you love her this much, why don't you come back to her? And we will see you again together as one. And his response is, why would you say come back to the Shulamite? Would you ask that of a king before two great companies? The great company reference is to when two kings go out to war. You know, you got this army over here with all their swords and spears poised. Then you got this army over here with all their spears. And it was the tradition that the king would ride from each army, pass through the front, and encourage his soldiers before they attacked each other. Never did this not happen. I mean, it would be a ridiculous question if Chuck were the king, and I say, well, Chuck, are you going to ride before the armies today? And you would answer me, what kind of stupid question is that? Of course I'm going to ride before the armies today. Well, that's how he's responding to the friend saying, if you love her this much, why don't you come back? And he's saying, what kind of stupid question is that? Of course I want to go back. Of course I want to be with her and love her. Would a king not ride before his armies? Would he fail to show up when he's needed and wanted and desired? Neither will I fail her. And that's the reference. And most people don't ever understand that, but that's the reference. Why would you ask a question, Shulamite, come back? Shulamite was a cultural term. Why would you ask a question like that? You wouldn't ask that of your king to ride before the armies, would you? Of course not. Then why would you ask me to come back to her? I can't wait to get there is basically what he said. Right? So the testing did not defeat them. The testing made the heart grow fonder in both cases because the heart was fond in the first place. And the desire to end the testing, to end the separation, to reunite is 100% genuine, almost sacred. How could you even ask a question like that? That's how it ends. My whole heart, my whole existence is based in this woman, and I love her more than I love myself. Why would you even ask if I was going to come back? Now, how many of you women would like to hear that every day? How many of you women in this earth would like to hear that once in your lifetime? See, God has a way for men and women to interact with each other. The problem is we just simply choose not to understand it. Oh, we'll figure it out. Well, you know, if you put me in the cockpit of a jet and took it off and handed me the controls and said, okay, there's only 417 people on board, land this sucker. But I don't know how to land this sucker. Well, you'll figure it out. I'll take you all the way to the crash site. That's not what we do. We wouldn't do that with a jet, and yet we do it every day with the person who's supposedly most important in our lives. Think about it. All right, next week we'll finish this up, chapter 7 and 8, and you'll see the next step. We've seen the falling in love, the making of love, the testing of love, and last week we will see the fruit or the labor of love. That's next week. All right? Go away.